live. Hello, hi, good evening everyone. Thanks for joining us again on our monthly end of the month Facebook Live, YouTube Live session. So just give me a minute as I get everything up and running. All right, okay, so let's see. I'm pretty sure everyone is here. Yeah, we are good, right? We are good, huh? Okay, so now let's get started. We've been getting feedback that the sessions are getting a little long, almost 2 hours, very, very heavy. So let's see if we can speed things up a little this time around. But for those of you who are, who watch us on Facebook, right? If you want to have a sort of timestamps so that you can skip through, if you're watching this on replay, if you want to skip through or jump to different segments, right? You can watch us on YouTube instead, because we can't put in timestamps on Facebook videos, but we can put in timestamps on YouTube videos. So jump over to YouTube to watch us if you would like for the timestamps, okay? Now, let's get started. We'll start first and foremost with recent news as usual, okay? So, first question right over here is, maybe I'm gonna jump all the way to this question first, okay? So, big question, right? Are housing prices sustainable? Okay, we have seen prices basically skyrocket ever since COVID came, ever since circuit breaker, prices have gone absolutely nuts. If you were to ask me myself, somebody who is in the market every single day, just 3-4 years back would have expected OCR prices to hit 2,000 PSF. My answer would be no, right? So now that we are at this stage, right, 2,100, 2,200 PSF for OCR. The question I get a lot recently is, are prices sustainable? And, we're going to answer that in today's session. But first and foremost, right, I think a very recent piece of news just on Saturday, August 27th, this came out in the Business Times. So we have an institute, right, the Urban Land Institute. They did a survey of the Asia Pacific gateway cities, and they sort of came to, they published their findings, and you can find this on the internet. You can just Google it and you can find it. And surprisingly, the Singapore housing, they have determined Singapore housing to be relatively affordable if compared to the other gateway cities in the Asia Pacific area. Right, part of the article, right, they are saying the Republic has the highest home ownership as well, right, near to 90%. I believe the number is 88.9%, right? And why did they say we are affordable? Is because we have a large majority of housing stock in Singapore, close to 80%. It's made up of HDB flats, which is government subsidized. But for the private property, the median price is about 1.13 million. Right? That said, Singapore non-HDB homes are the most expensive to rent in the region. So rentals in Singapore, and I think if they've taken this data last year, right, they're going to be more shocked about when the data comes out this time around. But why is Singapore homes so expensive to rent, right? if you were to ask me, it boils down to several reasons. First and foremost, we have always been like the article has said, a gateway city to the Asia Pacific. We with ASEAN and with Indonesia and the other ASEAN countries really developing very quickly. A lot of tech companies are wanting to penetrate those developing countries, right? They are setting up their hubs over in Singapore, which is bringing in a lot of talent. We've seen that in also a recent news article where the government is coming up with a new initiative to allow high-earning tech folks, right, to come into Singapore first and then look for a job here without having to secure a job, right? Currently, they have to secure a job before they are allowed to come into Singapore. So why do they have to do this? Because of the huge demand for such talent from the companies. But from the talent's perspective, it's also a location whereby they want to shift towards. For somebody who is in the market, and I've shared this many times in our live sessions, our videos, we see a huge shift of talent, of tenants moving in, coming in from both China and from Hong Kong, because of some of the geopolitical shifts as well. So all this is, and then next part, you look at this particular article with home ownership at close to 80%, 90% for as stated in the article, and also with the fact that we today have ABSD, there's very little speculative demand in the market. Most people own just one property, some, right, the more affluent ones can own two, very little own 3, 4, 5, 6. That used to, right? That used to be the case last time, right? Private properties, a lot of them were medium for speculation, and most, you own 6 property, you can't possibly stay in 6. you stay in one and you rent out the other 5. So last time, vacancy rates were very high. A lot of the private property stock was for rental, and hence the rental was suppressed. But today, in today's market, vacancy rates are very low, and hence rental prices are starting to pick up, right? We have the macro perspective down to the micro perspective on rental supply as well. Okay, so all in all, I expect rental rates in Singapore to remain high for a while. Do I expect it to come down? Part of me is thinking it might, with the TOP of a lot of large developments like Parc Normanton Park, Treasure at Tampines happening within the next 1 year or so. So once those developments TOP, and the people that are currently out renting, moving in and stopping their rentals, I see a chunk of rental demand being put out from the market. So whether or not the incoming rental demand is sufficient to supplement the outgoing demand from the people that are renting while waiting for their TOP, only time will tell. Okay, so I've read through the article in detail so that you guys don't have to, and picked up some of the other things that were mentioned in the article that were not mentioned in this very short article. Okay, first and foremost, right, how do we compare to the other cities? So in this first table, right, is the median/average home price to median household income ratios. So what's the price of the house as a function of income? As you can see, private property in Singapore over here, we have 13.3%. Okay, much lesser than Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Hong Kong, obviously, right, lesser than Seoul. But if you can see, not exactly cheap as well. Of course, HDB at 4.5 is one of the cheapest across the board. But for private, not exactly cheap. But next, in the next slide, right, they actually do talk a little bit about how do you make sense of these ratios. Okay. Next part, which is something that I have mentioned also quite a bit in my videos, but I'm glad now we have a table to illustrate this. So remember last year where there was a lot of talk on cooling measures and what are some of the potential cooling measures that may come into play, and I was leaning towards the possibility of a decrease in loan to value. Reason being, I see that happening a lot in the other countries. The other countries have utilized a decrease in loan to value as a way to dampen their property prices. And that all in all works well for the sustainability and the sustainability of the market, because you basically have to down pay more of your property. But of course, the downside would be first timers would be required to fork out a lot more down payment. So that's the reason why the Urban Land Institute, I believe that's what they are called, put together this table. So in this table, as you can see, Singapore is also classified as one of the countries that is easiest for first-timers, the easiest to own a property because of our low down payment requirements. A lot of them always complain, wow, so hard to buy a property, so hard to make a move into property. But sometimes there's a Chinese idiom, right? You 身在福中不知福, right? For those who don't understand Chinese, it's like sometimes when you live in a good place, you don't appreciate it. So let's put things into perspective, okay? Take a look at Hong Kong, where the typical down payment is 40% of the property. And in the whole of Korea, right, the typical down payment is 40% of the property. So you buy a $1 million property, you have to down pay $400,000, right? And that is the average / median prices of the properties around there. So a graduate, a young couple, right? And for those cities, right, those countries, they don't have affordable housing options. It's very, very hard for the younger generation to purchase their properties without the help of parents, for example. So I think at the very least, Singapore have done a good job in our housing policies. And also at least it's still reasonably easy to buy a property, right? Because of our down payment requirements are not as much as the other countries. That said, right, if property prices continue to rise, what may be one of the potential cooling measures that come in? So if you ask me, weighing up between capital gains versus lowering loan to value, I think the government may lean towards reducing loan to value to halt demand as opposed to capital gains tax, because capital gains will lead to demand destruction and may lead to long-term price decrease. But a loan to value reduction, it helps sustainability, but yet, holds prices back a little bit. And they can do that for private if they notice private prices going up a lot. At least for the first timers, they can still lean towards buying HDBs where they can use the bulk of their CPF as down payment as their first home lah. Okay? So for those of you who are interested to have the full report, right, you can go and just Google it and they have the full report over there. It's quite an easy to read report, but I've already put all the interesting parts over here lah. It's a little bit wordy, but I think it's quite interesting, the whole chunk over here. I'm just probably going to just read it out for you, right? In the study, housing in Singapore is the most affordable with price to income ratio of 4.5 for HDB flats. Okay. As mentioned earlier in the report, right, more than 80% of Singaporeans live in HDB flats. Although the price to income ratio of private homes is high at 13.3, private homes represent less than 20% of all housing stock. Okay, and cater to the wealthy Singaporeans and foreigners. So for those owning private properties, the price to income ratio should be substantially lower than 13.3. Reason being, 13.3 is using the median household income of the country. But later on, I'm going to share with you the actual data. On average, the people that, so the median household income in Singapore right now is $9,500. The average income of the average income of someone staying in a private property, right? The average household income of somebody staying in a private property, later I will show you, it's closer to 1,000. So if you're looking at that, the price to income ratio of somebody staying in a private property should be substantially lower than that, meaning the private property prices are still affordable for the people that can afford the private properties. Okay? Now, the second part, so that's how we make sense of this 13.3%, not percent, this 13.3 price to income ratio, okay? The low cost, the second part, the low cost of HDB units is tied to high priority of the Singapore government has placed on providing affordable housing to its citizens. It's understood that the government owns approximately 90% of all land in Singapore. So amongst all the gateway countries, in Singapore is where the government has the highest intervention in the property market, and we all know that. Okay, and this is also one of the points to note when we ask ourselves the question, are we in a bubble? Okay, because as a government with so much control, so much intervention policies into the property market, they cannot allow and they do not allow for bubbles to form. They used to, but ever since 2013, with all the onset of the cooling measures and whatnot, we know the minute property prices come out of whack, cooling measures come. The minute developers get slightly more aggressive with their bids, cooling measure comes into play. So today the government is doing everything they can to avoid going into a bubble. And they have all the different control mechanisms. Owning 90% of the land allows them to control on the supply side. With cooling measures, they are able to control on the demand side. So they have levers on both sides of the factors that affect price, demand and supply. Okay? Right? At about $10,000 per square meter, even private residential properties that cater to wealthier households are priced substantially lower than comparable housing in Hong Kong and Tokyo. So sometimes we always complain, right? But later on I will share with you an analogy. It's good to zoom out, which is why I like to read articles like that on the Asia Pacific level, even on an international level. It's just so that you can gain some sort of a perspective on a more global level, on a more regional level, as opposed to just looking at the newspaper articles and keep complaining that the prices are very, very high. Okay? And the next part is also interesting, which is why I put this whole chunk inside, because there's a lot of interesting nuggets, interesting things to learn from here. You see, the next part, right? The policy for redevelopment of existing buildings is considerably lax in Singapore as compared to other countries, right? You can go en bloc 10 years after construction, as long as 80% of them, of the residents agree. I think most of us know that. But what I think a lot of us don't know is that in Hong Kong, you need to be you can only go for en bloc after the development crossed 50 years, and in Korea after it crossed 40 years. So what that means, right, is that supply is even more restricted in those countries with all these rules. And in Singapore, they have you can churn the supply a lot easier. Okay? Now, next. Yeah, so now let's answer that big question that we have, right? Are prices sustainable? And to answer this question again, right, I'm going to break it down into two key questions, right? Number one, are we in a bubble? And number two, are prices affordable, right? Are they sustainable? Equates to are they affordable? If they're not affordable, then obviously it's not sustainable. Or if a lot of the transactions and a lot of the prices are held through speculative demand, then of course then it is also not sustainable. So I've broken it down into two parts, right? So answering the first question. So we've actually talked about this already quite a bit in the past few videos, but I think this just one very key data point. I think it's good for all of us to know, to also to share, to be able to tell you that there is very, very little speculation in the market today, right? Of all the transactions, only 2% can be classified as speculative. And how they classify a transaction a transaction as speculative if it's bought and sold in a short period of time. Compare this to 31% of all transactions being considered speculative back in 1995. Okay, so with the implementation of seller's stamp duty on residential properties, that has reduced all this speculative demand right down to close to zero at just 2%. So I do not see a bubble forming in the property market. But of course, that's just one part of it, right? A bubble also forms when people are buying properties that they cannot actually afford. So how do we answer that question? Now we look at data, and we get all this data is publicly available, either on SingStat or data.gov. That's where I got all this data from. So if you're keen, you can go inside there and take a look. Okay, so what are the data that I use? Number one, the Singapore residential household number stands at 1.39 million at this point in time. And of that percentage, okay, we have 16.5% that stays in condos and 4.9% that stays in landed property. So if I were to wrap these two percentages together, basically it's people that do not stay in HDBs lah. The number stands at 21.4%, and if you take 21.4% on 1.39 million, you get about 297,000 households that do not live in HDBs. Okay, so now remember this number, 297,000. Okay, which also means that about 1.09 million households stay in HDBs lah. Okay, now how do we make sense of these numbers, right? So if we were to look at affordability, the median household income in the Singapore household right now stands at $9,520 or as of 2021. Okay, and if I make the assumption of the family then taking a 30-year loan at 75% loan to value, they are able to afford a private property of up to $1.5 million. Okay, so median means right smack in the middle, the upper half and the lower half in equal groups. Median is 9,500. Okay. Now, if you were to look at, but again, median isn't really the best indicator for affordability, especially if you are looking at the private market, because for the private market, at the 50th percentile, to be honest, 9,500 combined household income is really a bit tight for you to consider upgrading. You can, but it may be a bit tight lah. So the people that really do consider the upgrades, let's take a look at their affordability. Okay, so the average, right? Not sure whether a lot of you know this. You can even find this figure in SingStat. Okay, it's the average income of a family that stays in a 5-room flat or an executive flat. Alright, and that average comes up to $13,000 per month. And at $13,000 per month, you can work out a private purchase price affordability of about $2.13 million. And this is the figure that I quoted just now, 19,000. Okay, so that is the average income of a family that stays in condos, right? And now that affordability then comes up to be $3.2 million. So just remember these figures, okay? Next part, next data point. Okay, so now this table states shows the, this table, the name a bit long. Let me read it out to you. Okay, this table is the average monthly household income from work among residents employed households by decile. You want me to repeat that again? Average monthly household income from work among resident employed households by decile. Okay, English, in English, okay, that just means the government takes the whole population and break them down into 10 equal groups. And then out of that 10 equal groups, okay, let's say in the top earning group, they take the average income for that And for that, that would be $28,900 as you can see. Then the second highest group, right, that comes out to be about $20,420, right? So it's just different ways to organize data lah. So decile is one of the ways. Okay, so how I interpret this, okay? So you can take a look at the decile from from 7th to 10th. That means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 40% of the population makes more than $14,000. And how does that translate into households, right? There's about 556,000 households that can afford a private property of up to 2.32 million. Now, how many, do you remember the figure on how many of them actually stays in condo/landed? Over here, 297. So we actually do have quite a high number of households that can actually afford but have not yet upgraded, right? And their affordability stands at about 2.32 million based off the fact that the average of that percentile makes about 14,000, right? Just that decile, it's not even that percentile, because if we look at the 8th decile, right, which is the top 30%, it gives us 417,000 households, still a larger number than the earlier number, that 297,000 that is currently staying in private properties. Okay, as we go up to the top 20%, it's 278,000 with a affordability of 3.39 million. Okay, so now all these numbers, I think maybe some of you already blur, but let me summarize it for you guys. Singaporeans are very, very well to do. Another article that I have not put inside is the fact that Singapore is going to have the highest percentage of millionaires, right? The recent HSBC survey done, highest percentage of millionaires. More or less, I believe the article is for everywhere in the world, higher than the US, Australia, and things like that. Currently, I think the top ranking is Australia. So income levels are really, really increasing, and at the kind of income levels, a lot of Singaporeans can actually afford to upgrade, can actually afford to stay in HDBs. The current median price of a private property only stands at 1.13 million. The current median price of it, I did not put in that figure. Is it? Yes. It's over here at the bottom part. Over here. I don't think I can draw it. Can I draw? Maybe here I can draw. Can I draw? Oh, I can. Can you see it? Can you see the screen if I'm drawing? Maybe it's a bit laggy. Cannot, huh? Okay. It's okay. Let's, oh dear. Let me erase that. Give me a minute. Oh, but anyway, it's not shown there, right? On the thing. Huh?
Are you drawing it?
Yeah. But you can't see it on the screen, right?
No.
Okay.
Can. The drawing?
Now can see already, huh?
Yeah, no, because there's a lag in the stream.
Okay. Right, so you guys can see it, okay, awesome. Then now can draw already. Yes, so I wanted to show you this figure. 1.13 million is the median household, median price for private properties lah. But as you can see, about 500,000 households can afford up to $2.3 million. So I seriously quite a fair bit of room to grow, right? In terms of based off the numbers that are currently staying in private properties versus the numbers that can afford, and also the current median prices, right? But I think the current median prices is not very reflective, as you can see with a lot of the new launches nowadays, right? But yes, current median prices versus potential affordability of a large number of the population. So kind of the two data points that I'm looking at to give me the confidence to say I believe the property market still has room to grow. Okay? All right. Let's delete that and go continue. Right, so the analogy that I wanted to give you guys is why do I pull out all this data, and why did I dive into the Urban Land Institute's research across the board. And if you guys follow our channel enough, you know that we don't, of course, we dive a lot into the Singapore property market, but we do give analogies and we do give examples of what's happening abroad as well. Another report that we like to refer to is also the PwC Asia Pacific Real Estate Market Report, just so that we have a sense of where we stand compared to the other countries in the world. Are we like sort of an outlier like where Hong Kong is, or are we below average at average, right? So at least now we know we are considered affordable as compared to the other countries. So be happy about it, right? The government has done a really good job to ensure affordability by segmenting out the market into public housing, right? Allowing people to buy into it easily, and also for those that manage to get subsidized housing, get a good amount of profit and then utilize that profit together then with your high income to roll into a private property if you want to, okay? So just a word of advice, right? Never look at things just from your own perspective. Do zoom out, see things on a bigger perspective, right? And for next up, right, what should you do, right? Today we are just only looking at affordability more on the demand side to things, which is something that we don't usually focus that much on our channel. For those who follow us, again, you know we focus a lot more on the supply side, because the supply side factors, the supply side data is a lot easier to predict, right? Because if you don't sell land today, 4 years later, you're not going to get any houses. So today, we already know what the supply is like 4 years from now, making it very, very easy to predict. Demand, again, is not that easy to predict, but yet we use, which is why we use income data such as income, data such as HDB, MOP, that is at least still reasonable to predict, because even if it were to drop, it will not drop by that much, it will not change by that much, okay? Next, right, point number 2, the shifting trends in the Singapore property market, right? Some of the other data that hasn't been talked about is the shrinking household. While the household numbers the resident household numbers are going up, the average size of a household is coming down. I believe it's currently at 3.5 persons per household. And I think the government is expect that to come down even more as we get more singles, people that are not getting married, or those that get married and don't have kids. So what does that mean for the Singapore property market? What segments will benefit from shifting trends like that? But of course, reducing household size, then you may say, hey, but Alvin, you always say buy big OCR properties, go the bigger the better. Doesn't this run contrary to what you have always suggested? Now, then it's also, you have to know how to segment out the demand lah. Okay, where are the singles at? What's the kind of affordability? What are their considerations? Things like that. So there's a bit more detailed. Okay, and the last part, right, understanding the money flow in the Singapore property market. I haven't done a basics webinar in a while. Maybe I'll do that soon. But I think in a couple of videos back, I sort of explained the building blocks of the Singapore property market, from BTO, how the money flows into the property market, what triggers those flows, what affects those flows, right? And what are the things that is affecting this flow at this point in time. So once you understand how the money flows in the Singapore property market, you know where to position your purchases and how to analyze the market. Okay? So let me know in the comments if you would like us to do a fundamentals webinar again, right? For the followers or for the new subscribers, right? That want to know how we see the market and how we fundamentally understand the market. Right, so half an hour in, I think good time, because the last time around, the first part, before even getting into the topic, I already talked for 1 hour. But today, that's it. We are going into the topic proper, dissecting profitable properties in the OCR West side. Okay, so where is the OCR? Okay, again, everywhere outside, everywhere in grey, and for today we are focusing in on the west, so District 22, 24, part of District 5, 23, 21, 25. Okay, right, so we have part of Clementi, West Coast, right, then we have Upper Bukit Timah, Ulu Pandan, Clementi Parc, Jurong East, Jurong West, Boon Lay, Hillview, Bukit Panjang, Choa Chu Kang. Okay, nothing much in Kranji, Lim Chu Kang, right, and we're not in NS anymore, so no Sungai Gedong as well. But we will talk a little bit about Tengah. Okay, so let's get started, and I'm going to start off in District 22 because that is where we bought our first investment property, and we are going to do sort of a recap, a review of our first investment property purchase. So how did that turn out? What are some of the things we learned? What are some of the things that we probably would have done differently? And as painful as it is, right, we're going to look back and see, like, had we bought something else, would that have turned out better? Would we have, right, so like some of this, right, were there better alternatives in the area in hindsight, right? Could we have made more money, let's say, if we have sold sooner or later, would we have made more money? We are doing this, we don't do this like on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that is not, no point looking at the past, but we are going to do this because we thought definitely it will benefit our followers, and it's also part of the learning process, right? You go through everything. There's even for guys like us, we can't get it 100% of the time, right? But as we learn along, hopefully we get closer to that 100%. So this is our purchase, right? We bought Lake Grande, that is beside Lakeside MRT, in between Lakeside and Chinese Gardens. I mean, to be honest, we've only been there like 3 to 4 times, so it's not like we both, right, Elizabeth and I both grew up in the east, so we are not terribly familiar with the west area, but I do know it's between Chinese Gardens and Lakeside MRT. Alright, we bought it at 1.12 million. As you can see over here, if I zoom in, oh no, I'm drawing it again. Okay. Okay, so we bought it in July 2016, okay, for 1.102 million, right? We sold it in December 2020 at 1.28 million. We made a profit of about $178,000, giving us a non-leveraged annualized gain of about 3.4%. Well, I think for those of you who follow, or if for those of you who invest, you may feel 3.4%, nothing much lah. Propnex shares dividends 7%. But of course, this is non-leveraged, which is why I put over here to give you an idea of annualized leverage gains, because for a purchase of 1.102 million at that point in time, it was still 80% leverage. So if you calculate out the annualized leverage gains, right, so it's return on actual cash that we put inside is about 27% per annum, right? So if you look at 27%, it's not too bad. I have not yet, but of course some of you will say never calculate stamp duty and whatnot lah, but the fact is that actually we rented it out. So, you know, just to make it easy to calculate, okay? And also make it easy for us to compare across the board, which is something that we'll do a lot of later on, okay? So the west side, very, very interesting. So stay tuned, because I have lots and lots of case studies to share with you, and some of those that are have yielded some surprising results, right? Very, very interesting. So, right, stay tuned. But yes, so this is how our first property investment turned out, okay? About a 4-year holding period. Because why? Because that time when we bought was 4 years SSD. If not, I would have sold it in 3 years, right? That time when we bought was still 4 years. Later on, 1 year down the road, then it became 3 years. Okay, so now, how did our results stand, right, comparing to our other neighbors in Lake Grande? So if you just look at this table, so what is this table? This table is all the transactions in Lake Grande ranked by percentage annualized profits, okay, from highest to lowest. So we have our highest, our friend over here with our good neighbor over here with 5.1% annualized, and this is us at 3.4% lah. All the way down here, I would say we are a good the 20th best unit there, right? So good 20 other neighbors that did better than us, okay, in terms of percentage annualized profits. And if you look at this table, another thing that you will see is that most of them that make the higher annualized profits, right, actually sold later than us. You see over here, we're the only one that sold in 2020. The rest of them sold 2021, 2022. So immediately you will say, Alvin, you sold too early, okay? And actually, me and Elizabeth, we had this discussion at that point in time, right? Is it too early to sell? Should we hold on to it for a little longer? So now, if a very simple calculation, you can see that the PSFs over here, I think, of course, we have a champion here at 1,700 PSF, but it's a little bit of an outlier. Let's take that out. But I think it's reasonable to say we could have sold at maybe 1,006 PSF, right? Had we hold on to today, that will represent a difference of about let's see, we calculate, right? 1,006 minus 1,486, 114 PSF times 861, we would have made an additional close to $100,000 if we hold on to today, right? But that would also mean, by holding on to this property, that would also mean we would have missed out on our opportunity to purchase Parc Esta, right? Of which we are currently sitting on close to 300, conservatively actually, $300,000 profit. So why I've shown this, I took this out to share this example is I just got off a call. Maybe you are watching here. Hello, right? Don't want to mention names. Last night, okay, with one of our followers. So he was asking me, hey, Alvin, so if you're in my position, what would you do? So he's sitting on, it's about a $1 million property. So, which is why my answer to him is the same case study I use myself as a case study. Most likely, all the properties that you continue to hold, the prices will continue to go up, right? But just simply seeing it from that angle, it's a little myopic in my opinion, right? So I would layer one more consideration on top of that. What is your income and what is your age? Does that asset, the size of the asset, match up with your income? And surprisingly, this is something that quite a fair number of people do miss out on, right? I've also met some clients that have about, they own 2 properties, one for own stay, one for investment, but combined income a good $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, but the investment property only $600,000, $700,000. Good rental yield, but it's only growing on $600,000 when they could very easily, if they were to sell and restructure it, be sitting on like at least a $1.3 to $1.5 million purchase, right? So everything price will go up. Now, if you follow us enough, you share so much fundamentals, right? Everything the price will go up. Just make sure the property you are sitting on, it's big enough, because you know, if we had kept on to it, right, grew another 100,000, but if you were to, on top of the 100,000, grow another 20%, it's still growing off a $1.1 million. But for the $1.7 million that we are sitting on, thanks to Parc, if that goes up 10%, is quite a fair bit more lah. Okay, and then so next part, looking at this, would I have bought another unit, or should I have bought another unit type? For those of you who follow, sometimes I whine about the fact that I bought a 2+ study when I should have actually bought a 3-bedroom. Now looking in hindsight, Lake Grande, the interesting thing about Lake Grande is all the unit types also can make money. We have the first one, right, which I checked out, is a 4-bedder, right, 1173 square feet 4-bedder. 980 square feet is a 3 compact. 721 square feet is a 2-bedder, 2-bed, 2-bath. 614 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath. 1302 square feet, 5-bedroom. So 5-bedroom, of course, quantums, they have made the most close to $500,000. My guess is this guy, I mean, he got a really high PSF for it. So this is also another interesting trend that we see moving forward. I'm going to put it out there. PSS for larger units moving forward will be higher than the smaller units, and that's not, we started to see that from the developer side. If you look at like Woodley Residences, for example, the larger units actually have a higher PSF, and I think I did mention this, I think maybe a year and a half ago, that I foresee this being a trend moving forward. Why? Because of the high demand for larger units, and also because it is the owner-occupiers that are buying and paying for these larger units, and they are doing it for their own stay, and they have the capacity to afford it, and also because the demand likely outweigh the supply, hence the ability to charge this kind of prices. Okay, so of course, now in hindsight, would I have bought another unit? Looking at the fact that you see a lot of the 614 square feet make quite a lot of money as well. As a matter of fact, more money than me. Maybe I wouldn't have spent so much lah, right? Don't go in between. Either go for a smaller unit, or you move up to buy a 980 square feet 3 compact. But then I got it at launch day, and actually at that point in time, there weren't that many options available for me already, right? But I mean, all in all, turn out well. It's not that I'm complaining, All right, so don't flame me to say overly greedy, right? This is a learning experience, right? What would we have done differently? Okay. All right. Okay, next up, right, zooming out into Lakeside, okay. Now also to see, right, had we not bought Lake Grande, if we bought something else in that area, would we have done better? Okay, so now if we zoom in, right, what I've done is to rank the developments around Lakeside MRT in the order of from the highest percentage analyzed, average annualized capital gains from high to low. So we see Caspian being ranked the highest, followed by Lakeshore, then Lake Homes, which is a EC, then Lake Point, then Lakefront, Lake Grande, Lakeview, followed lastly by Parc Vista, which is really, really old. Can't remember if this is the one that just went en bloc. But yeah. So if we rank it just like that, you may be thinking, yeah, wow, like that means you should have bought resale, right? How the agents say buy new launch, but in the end actually resale make more money. But then again, right, I think this is a bit simplistic, right, to gauge it simply because of this. Couple of reasons why. Number one, in recent years, especially the last 1 to 2 years, the resale market has picked up a lot under other circumstances which may not have been the case. Okay, so now to make it more comprehensive, to make this exercise a little more comprehensive, I've actually zoomed in and picked out some of the transactions, right, of people that bought about the same time and sold about the same time, and then let's take a look at what are their profits made. So we have Caspian. Okay, we have these units that bought in also 2016, sold, right, 2020 to 2022. You see over here, the average annualized gains, some of them do actually beat us at 3.4. But if you look all the way down, so I have Caspian and Lakeshore, which is the top two if we look at the table earlier on. Only maybe one guy or two guys beat us at 3.4% and 4.6%, right? Fair number did not beat us at 3.4%. Now, what do I learn? From this? Okay, couple of things. First thing is that in the resale market, it is a lot harder to get it right. Okay, now that's one conclusion, right? You can get it right. There are people that do better than buying new launches, but how do you know, right? To be honest, if you ask me to look at it, why this guy is at 4.6, other than the fact that he bought a larger unit, right? But there's this other guy as well that bought a similar size unit, right? But made much lesser than him, albeit sold 1 year difference lah. They bought at almost the same PSF, but sold at about 100 PSF difference, hence the difference in profits. So, but both did quite well. So of course, big units, okay. So if I use my budget, right, I think I would have been able to buy this 1001 square feet unit over 1001 square feet unit over here at 0727, of which I definitely would have done quite badly at only 0.7% percentage annualized, making $40,000 profit in the same period of time. Okay, if not, then maybe buy Lakeshore. Okay, this 1163 square feet unit. One only make $28,000, the other one make $200,000. So at the end of the day, I just feel that if you ask me, if you are an investor, you want to make money, it's easier to buy something that is new. But it doesn't mean resale you cannot make money, you can. You just need to be a lot more careful. There are a lot more considerations to put into play, because a good development, but you buy the wrong unit, can have drastically different returns, as we can see over here. The next thing is that the exit also, right, you can see 1 year difference can make a difference of almost $100 over $1,000. The exit is even more important, right? For a newer development, you exit early, you exit later, you still make, you just make a bit lesser, but this one, the difference can be quite a lot. Let's look at this Lakeshore one over here. A 4 months difference, the difference in profit can be $28,000 and $200,000. Okay, so more things to consider, right? So if you don't think you are that skillful, you don't think you know enough, all right, it's easier you just buy something that is new lah, huh? But that being said, also I'm going to caveat that, because if you see later on, there are some examples, they buy new, but buy wrong new one also cannot make money, right? Stay tuned, I'm going to talk about that later on. Okay, so Lakeside aside, tongue twister, Lakeside aside, I'm also doing another exercise to compare between the other new launches that I could have purchased in the west side had I not gone for Lake Grande. So at that point in time, there were other alternatives like Parc Riviera. As a matter of fact, a lot of agents actually chose to go to Parc Riviera because of its lower entry price. At that point in time, Parc Riviera and Lake Grande, the example, right, was one that people used a lot to say, you know, buy the lower entry price one. But thankfully, you know what? In the end, the results, of course, if we look at this, Parc Riviera did better lah, if we just simply look at this number. But as you can see from the earlier example, this is just a very simplistic way of looking at it, right? You've got to then dive in and look at specific transactions, which we will do. Okay, so in the roughly same period of time, right, they all TOP about the same time, launch about the same time, about the same size. Okay, Lake Grande's performance is the lowest among the three of them lah. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the transactions and see, had I bought another unit in those developments, how would my profits have turned out? Would I have done things differently? Okay, so now these are actual transactions. So that's me in orange. Okay, 861 square feet, make $178,000. So I tried my best to find, of course, the number one would be the purchase price being quite similar, okay? Then it's fair to see the profitability. So if you compare over here, had I bought Clementi Avenue would be Clement Canopy, right, obviously. Had I gone to Clement Canopy, the thing is the PSF would be a lot higher. So for the same budget, would have gotten a 2-bedder instead of a 2+ study, 710 square feet. But today, Clement Canopy has risen up to 1,800 PSF already. It would have done a lot better. I would have done a lot better had I bought this unit. Annualized gains of 4.5% make about $222,000, okay, $50,000 more. And just a teaser, this particular unit is facing the highway. So since we are talking about case studies, dissecting profitable developments, a big question that people always ask me is that, hey, Alvin, if you face highway, how? The natural common sense would be don't buy the highway facing ones. But if you really do dive into the data and you do the case studies over here, Clement Canopy, a lot of the units over there that make the money are the ones that face the highway. Okay, but given a choice now, okay, you have to see the difference in pricing lah. Okay, if it's everything is the same price, of course you're going to pick the non-highway facing one. But the developers are not silly. The developers will put some sort of a loading in play. And so for the right price, buying into a highway facing unit, you will not die. Another case study is Sims Urban Oasis. And potentially I feel once Penrose gets TOP'd, we're going to see the highway facing units doing pretty well also. Okay. So I mean, just a side track a little bit lah. This unit highway facing, okay, albeit high floor, but yet highway facing. If I put it out there, most people will not buy because, or if I put it out there and I compare across the board my unit versus this unit, I think a lot of people will have picked my unit because my unit is inward facing the pool actually. Okay, right, next, Parc Riviera. Okay, so Parc Riviera, right, while we look at the generalized table in the previous slide, it would have meant that I would have done better if I bought Parc Riviera. But if we really look at the data and similar units, because if I went to Parc Riviera, I would have been able to get like a 3-bedroom compact, 990 square feet, but I actually wouldn't have made as much money. So if you look at the Parc Riviera data, there are certain units, especially the larger units, that really put the average annualized returns higher. So had I got a 3 compact unit, this particular unit, 990 square feet, I would have made 3.2% annualized, $154,000 quite similar. In hindsight, would I have picked that over Lake Grande today? Maybe. Today where I stand, I would have picked the slightly larger unit as opposed to the more expensive yet more convenient unit. And also bearing in mind, Parc Riviera is also anchored down by a very good school, Nanhua, within 1 km. So in hindsight, I may have picked Parc Riviera over Lake Grande lah. Okay, just food for thought. Okay. Next up, we will be now. Since we touched on the topic for Clement Canopy, let's dive into the Clementi case study. Okay, let's analyze the properties over at Clementi. It's an area that I really like because mature town, not a lot of supply, especially if you look north of AYE, there's just not a lot of supply lah. In Clementi, but yet Clementi as a town has all the amenities. It's also near to all the tertiary institutions. It's also a town with a lot of $1 million HDBs. So I think fundamentally Clementi is as blue chip as it gets. For those of you who has followed us enough, it's a term that I use for towns that have high demand, low supply. So now if we look at it, here, we rank it out, right? Just the general one, of course, not all encompassing. Clement Canopy ranks top in Clementi in terms of profits lah. Annualized capital gains 4.8%, right? Followed by the Parc, which is Freehold, 20, right? TOP in 2010, right? But the Parc is to the south of AYE, so it's not walking distance to Clementi. Wow, all these words is tying up my tongue. Clement Canopy, Clementi. Okay, so pardon me. Okay, the Parc is not walking distance to Clementi MRT. Okay, but it is 1 km to Nanhua lah. Okay, all the developments here are within 1 km to Nanhua. Okay, the Parc has did do better than Trilinq. So the curious case over here, right, is the comparison between Clement Canopy and Trilinq. Why? Okay. Because, sorry, I stand corrected. Clement Canopy is not within 1 km of Nanhua, but the Trilinq is. Okay, so we always say buy close to good schools is a very good anchor for your property price. I myself say that, okay, and I'm a huge believer in that. But somehow or rather, you see the Trilinq right beside, the Trilinq is literally right beside Nanhua, okay? By right, and it's a good size development, 755 units. By right should do well, but you see annualized capital gains 0.6%. Very, very bad. It's bad, like across the board bad, right? So why is the Trilinq performing so poorly for a development that is 1 bus stop to Clementi MRT, right beside a good school in a blue chip area? Everything else by right, it should do well, right? And some more end up lose up to Clement Canopy that's further away from the MRT, that's out of 1 km of Nanhua. It by right should be opposite way around. Okay, and then we have the average PSF for Clement Canopy beating the Trilinq. Yeah, right. And this discussion is important because some of the people will be asking, then which direction will Parc Clementis lean towards? Will Parc Clementis versus Clervon end up like Clement Canopy and Trilinq, because they are like the exact siblings to one another. So now let's find out the reason. So I have plotted out the price trends for Clement Canopy and Trilinq over here, and then let's just see what happened. Okay, so blue line is Clement Canopy and orange line is the Trilinq. So what do you notice with the line for the Trilinq? not much of a trend, okay? You see it going up and down very, very drastically. Why? Later, the next slide, I will share with you why. But what is one thing that is absent from the orange line that we see in the blue line, okay? So notice, as I zoom in, okay, the blue line, I'm going to try to draw and not make an absolute mess out of the whole thing. The blue line, notice how near or right there about at TOP, we see a very sustained, very consistent increase in price. So this is a concept that a lot of people, I think it's not something that has been thrown around a lot recently because most of the launches more or less sell out at launch, which is this term called developer pricing stage. Developer staging of price, okay, a concept that has lost its a bit out of fashion recently, right? Because a lot of launches smaller in size, like Amo sold out in launch day. Developer don't even have a chance to stage the price, which comes to the point. Is it to your benefit that the development is sold out on launch day? As a consumer, actually, it's not to your benefit. Okay, Clement Canopy took their time to sell, about a year or so. But as they took their time to sell, the developer staged the price upwards, right? It started off at 1,003 PSF, and by the time they sold out to their last unit, it touched 1,600 PSF. Okay, so of course, once TOP, the prices did drop down a little bit because the people that launched, the people that bought earlier could have sold it, and then they just sold out, because also this is a lot of the flippers upon TOP. So this is also another thing that you can learn, right? If you're not in a rush to sell, maybe not such a good idea to sell upon TOP because it is the point whereby a lot of the flippers try to sell, and also if the developers have staged the price up very, very aggressively, definitely there will be a slight adjustment in price down from the developer benchmark prices, because if you realize it, actually only a very low number of people bought in at that kind of price. Furthermore, they are locked in with SSD, so they also cannot sell. The people that are out of SSD bought in at a lot lower prices, and so which is why you notice the price usually go up and then come down. But then with sufficient unit size, right, it will then continue to pick back up again. Right, so be patient and don't be in for a shock. Okay, just be patient. And then you see the trend then now picking up again to now hit 1,800 PSF Clement Canopy today. So now, what explains the Trilinq underperformance? Okay, I'm going to boil it down to two things. Let me zoom it out. Right, so this stage up in prices we never see in Trilinq. As you can see, as a matter of fact, the prices seem to be trending downwards ever since the developer started selling. Okay, and now when with the lack of staging, then it just basically sets the trend even after TOP already. The price is very, very hard to catch back up if the developer did not stage the price up sufficiently enough. Because Trilinq, another thing, right? Let's jump to the next slide. Oops. I accidentally locked the screen. Can you help me unlock the screen? Wait I beg your pardon. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so why isn't Trilinq performing like it should? I boiled down to a couple of reasons. Number one, lack of developer staging. The Trilinq's developer is IOI. I think Trilinq was one of their first developments in Singapore, and they tried to be a little bit too creative for my liking, and they actually built quite a lot of these loft units. And building these loft units, they charge you for that additional ceiling height. And I remember visiting the Trilinq before, and while it was impressive, the downside was that the bedrooms, they didn't build it to a good enough size. A lot of the bedrooms couldn't even fit in a queen size bed, which is actually the most important thing if you were to cater to upgraders. Of course, because it's located in the OCR, your primary market is upgraders, which is why the developers struggled to sell their units, and there was a lot of units left over even after it TOP. So now, then on the back of potential ABSD penalties, QC charges and things like that, the developer were not able to increase their prices. So which you can see over here all the way from the start. Not just cannot increase price, we have a huge range of PSFs all the way from 1,000 PSF down to up to 1,005 and above. Now this is going to confuse a lot of consumers, because the consumer is going to come in and then they're going to see, they see the unit, they may like it, 1,500 PSF. Then they go home, they do their own research and then, oh my god, the average PSF only 1,200. Why got people 1,100? Especially if they see a non-loft unit and then they realize the PSF is average PSF is so low, it's going to confuse people and it's going to cause a lot of concerns. And I put that down to one of the reasons why Trilinq really doesn't seem to have a lot of momentum in their transactions. People are so confused as to what to expect when you go into the Trilinq. So the developers sort of were a little bit too creative, too aggressive for their own good. And today, the people that bought into their Trilinq, while yes, some of them have still made profits, there are some units, the non-loft units, they have done pretty well. Thankfully, because of their proximity to Nanhua and also their location in Clementi. I tell you, if Trilinq is located, let's say in Hillview, which we'll talk about later, oh gosh, it would have been absolute bloodbath. But yeah, couple of those are some of the reasons, right? Clement Canopy, UOL as the developer, a lot more traditional. They knew how the market worked. They knew how to build units that would be sold, right? There is demand for in the market. So cookie cutter, if you like, but easy to sell, right? Easy to sell from the developer's point of view, but also easy to sell in the resale market. Because I tell you now, if you give me a listing with the double volume ceiling, it's really not going to be easy to sell, because it's not really, it's a very niche market. You go for a staycation, maybe it'll be something that's interesting, but I ask you to stay in it for long, people will complain that it's so high, you want to change the light bulb, you got to erect a scaffolding and things like that, how you're going to clean all the double volume ceiling space and whatnot. So yeah, what do I learn out of all of this? Remember, developer staging is important. Where the development's price will be headed to actually is really determined by how the developer has priced it, pre-launch, post-launch, pre-TOP, and whatnot, right? Because the analogy is this, right? Picture a relay race, okay? So the developer is the one that starts the race, okay? And then you got to see at what speed he hands over the baton to you, the resale owner, right? So if he hands over to you when he's running very, very fast, right? You take over, you can continue the race very, very quickly. But if the developer like hobble towards you, and by the time he passes the baton to you, it's more or less like walking speed, or maybe stand still, hand over to you, you're going to take a lot of energy to start to hit the correct pace and to catch up with your neighbors, right? Very, very clear case study over here, right? Over at Clement Canopy, the UOL handed over to the owners running full speed, right? Staged it up. Then they just continued going on from there. The Trilinq, basically, when the developers handed over to all the resale owners, standing start, as a matter of fact, probably dropped the baton. Okay? Next up, no? My comparison was Grande versus Clement Canopy, then versus Parc Riviera. So now, case study over in Clementi. Now, before we go into West Coast, right, to summarize that, which one would I see? Do I see Parc Clementi's and Clement moving towards? Clement, the same developer as Clement Canopy. So I expect, and they were able to stage their prices up a little bit after the launch. So I see good trajectory over there. And also they're going to have the benefit of that plot that is in between Clement Canopy and Clement to be launched real soon. Maybe UOL will do a hat trick and take up all 3 sites. So that potential site will then pull up the prices, just like how Clement and Parc Clementi's pull up Clement Canopy's prices. So Clement, I think, will follow the price trends of Clement Canopy, and also because at the entry prices at that point in time in Clement, we had a couple of clients enter into Clement and Parc Clementi's very, very affordable PSFs, about 1,006, 1,007 PSF. Resale now has already hit, as you can see, Clement Canopy 1,800 PSF. What does that tell me? Very, very strong demand in that area. Okay, so I think we're going to do just fine. And the layouts over in Parc Clementi's, okay, even though, I mean, it's by a slightly more experienced developer, probably not as experienced as UOL, but more experienced than IOI, right? It's by Singhai Yi. I love the layouts over there, so I don't see a big concern. And they have also staged up their prices, so I expect also a running handover to the resale owners. Okay, now let's talk about West Coast, okay? So over in West Coast, I've listed down a couple of examples, a couple of condos for us to consider. We have Whistler Grande, right, just TOP, the Infinity, right, TOP in 2008, Monterey Park Condo 2005, then we have Twin View at Parc Riviera. So, as we can see over here, I wouldn't take the 6.6% capital gains for Whistler Grande as the trend moving forward, because there's been very little resale transactions over there, so it's not at a good enough number for my liking. Sales volume over here not reflective, because there was still quite a fair bit of developer sales over there. So take this 6.6% with a pinch of salt. So if you exclude away Whistler Grande, if you can see over here, the freehold condos in the area did better with a gains of 5.2%, 4.4% over 3.9 and 3.8%. But then again, this is quite generalized. If you really look at it, probably within the same period of time, the newer condo purchases maybe would have made more money. It's been put up because some of them hold it for a slightly longer period of time. Secondly, I believe the freehold condos in the area benefited a lot thanks to our 3 brothers, Twin View, Parc Riviera and Whistler Grande. Okay, but I show this example because later on as we move on to Hillview, it will not be the case. Okay, so even though if we look at these numbers, they don't look very, very, we look at, let me draw, if we look at these numbers, the 99, because a lot of the times people are saying the 99 leasehold condos should do better. In this case, the freehold actually did better. The fact that Parc Riviera, Twin View, they are not really very close to the MRT, albeit within 1 km of Nanhua, but not close to MRT and absolutely no amenities over there. Them being to average out 3.8 to 3.9% returns is very, very good already. Okay, very, very good. What are some of the reasons why they have made this amount of money? Actually, if you go to the previous slide, low entry price. I think that's as clear or as simple answer that I can give you. They offered a very, very low entry price into the private property market. Because if you really look at it over in the West, there's also not that much HDB upgrader demand as compared, let's say, to the Northeast. But yet the performance is very, very good. So this is just why I'm a big proponent of entry quantums and entry price when it comes to purchases of property. So for the right entry price, right entry quantum, as you can see, a 2-bedder in Clement Canopy can get you a 3-bedder in Parc Riviera. Doesn't need to be near the MRT, right? As long as the price is right, you will still make profits, okay? Now, so it's okay to be a 99 in a freehold area. We have seen that in the multiple case studies that we have done. You will not die. But as we move on to the next one, over at Hillview, you're going to notice that the 99-year developments over here get absolutely trounced by the freehold developments. Okay, let's take a look. So over here, ranking out, over in Hillview, ranking out by percentage annualized capital gains, our top is Dairy Farm, followed by Summerhill, followed by Dairy Farm Estate, not Dairy Farm Residences, okay? Dairy Farm Estate, the freehold one, that is my age, TOP in 1988, right, 35. 35? Am I 35? 34 this year. Okay. Summerhill, Hillington Green, Hillview Heights, right? So you see all the freehold ones performing really, really well. I mean, well, right? Nowadays, right, we've seen all the super profitable ones, about 2.5%. You just feel it's quite okay, right? But 4 and 8% is very, very good. But the interesting thing is over here, you see the freehold ones getting absolutely hammered with numbers like 1.1%, 1%, and 0.8%. Now, we want to understand why. Okay, why the 99 years development in freehold in Hillview do so badly? Let's try to find the reason why, and then so see how we can possibly avoid it. See if the recent Midwood and the recent Dairy Farm will it follow this trend. Okay. Okay, so I've picked out some of the transactions over at Summerhill for us to analyze. Okay, so you see the most recent transactions are our friend over here, this Champion, making 8.2% annualized. Let's give him a round of applause. This is pretty damn sick. Bought in Jan 2019. Make $500,000, $592,000. Okay, albeit he bought a slightly bigger unit. Take a look at the resale price right now, 1,600. Oops, 1,600, 882 PSF. This is a development that is how old? Let me see. Summerhill, 20 years old. Okay, very, very good profits, 8.2%. But all in all, you see everyone that sold from December last year until this year is sitting on average, if you can see down over here, a good 4%, average 4 to 5% percentage annualized. So now, are you going to tell me that, hey, actually freehold resale is the way to go? I beg to differ, which is why I've put out the data for people that sold before this huge spike after COVID. Okay, so we see over here, these are the people that sold in December in 2017, 2018. Okay, so we see over there the kind of profits don't look as good. I mean, it's still decent, but it's not quite what we see for those that sold within the last 6 to 7 months. And this kind of profits, right, it will look more similar to the kind of annualized returns that we see over in the Lake Grande examples that I showed, right? Lake Grande example, Clement Canopy. Clement Canopy would have beaten this in terms of the percentage annualized returns. So just a word of caution for the viewers if you're watching this video, because of the increase in price in the resale market in the last 1 to 2 years, it sort of has, I would say, swayed the data to make it look like a lot of the resale properties can make money. But just a word of advice, and the reason why I'm sharing with you all these case studies, and also doing in this particular case, stripping out the kind of gains because of what has happened in the last 1 to 2 years, right? To see the kind of trends ex-COVID, if you get what I mean, right? Excluding COVID. And also so that you can compare it fairly with the other new developments that have come out lah. So excluding COVID, if you were to go into resale, still can make money, but got to be careful. Okay, there's a lot more things to consider. I have picked Hillview. I don't know. Based on this, maybe not. Hillview, let's say Hillview to the whole Lake Grande example, probably not, right? Except for this guy, right? I would have wanted to be this guy, but then you know the kind of price he entered is quite high also. Notice his purchase price at this point in time significantly higher than a lot of the rest of them. But thankfully he caught the market right and he got the right development 1475 square feet. Now let's erase all of this and go to the next slide. Okay, so you see over here is another way to look at the data that I wanted to share earlier on. You see the prices ex-COVID, right? Did not really move by much all the way from 2013 over to 2019 ex-COVID, right? It's only during the COVID periods that we really see a pickup in prices. Okay. But of course, it's very hard to say without COVID would we see the same kind of thing happening. Because as I always say, once a development goes out of the hands of the developers, and if you zoom out in the long term, they end up just following the property price index movement, because this is based on more or less directly correlated to the property price index chart. Now let's take a look at Kingsford Hillview Peak. Okay, Kingsford Hillview Peak is a 99-year development, right? If you use the methodology that is very prevalent in the market today, new launch, 99-year development, bound to make money, you'll be in for a rude shock. For especially over at Kingsford Hillview Peak, we only had one friend that made decent amount of money, 4.2%, but it's only 4.2% annualized because he held it for 238 days, which means he would have paid SSD on the sale. And if he paid SSD on the sale, he would hardly have made any profits lah. So this I would actually remove this as even a data point. It's only because the days is so short, that's why the annualized seems high, because this figure would actually mean he lost money because of the SSD. Then if you look at the rest, for a new launch development, this kind of annualized returns is subpar, maybe already making them sound very good lah. Now why? Right? The market is always saying 99 new launch development, decent size, Kingsford Hillview Peak, decent size. But why cannot make money? Is it a problem with the development, or is it a problem with the area? I think that's one of the interesting things to talk about. But we have already seen Summerhill doing well, we have seen Dairy Farm Estate doing well, so it's not exactly a problem with the area. So is it a problem with the developer? Is it a problem with the project? Now we're going to find the answer to that, okay? I've put the price trends for Summerhill and Kingsford Hillview picked together to sort of draw some conclusions from this, see what can we learn from this now. Huh? So now over here, first thing first, right? There's a price gap, and I mean we all know lah. A new development definitely will have a price gap over to existing development. But personally, after having analyzed the Hillview area, I put one of the reasons for the sub-performance of the 99-year developments in the Hillview area, right? I'm going to jump very quickly to the to the next slide now. To the products being too similar to one another. Okay, what do I mean by that? This is not the only area with a lot of freehold developments and a lot of 99-year developments, right? We have that in Clement, a lot of freehold developments, right? Albeit smaller, right? But we have 99-year developments, and the 99-year developments in Clement all do a lot better than the freehold ones. We have also seen in West Coast, right, 99-year development and freehold development both doing well, right? It's probably it's only in Hillview that like the freehold development did well and the 99-year development is doing very, very poorly. I put it down into the options being too similar to one another, and when the options are too similar and the freehold option being not too lousy a alternative, right? So one of the reasons why I feel in Clement, the freehold developments don't do as well as the 99-year developments, because a lot of the Clement freehold developments are small in scale, they don't have a pool, they are basically apartments. And so upgraders, family-orientated folks, they don't really like, of course, unless they are freehold fanatics, they don't really like those developments. But if you were to go into the Hillview area and you go and visit the condos, the freehold condos over there, they are of a good size, good facilities, and then especially if they are priced now significantly cheaper than the 99-year option, it will be quite natural for them for folks to then lean towards it. And they are also built in an era, right, whereby it's not overly big. It's not like our District 15, whereby, or our CCR, whereby the old freehold developments are a lot bigger than the new 99-year developments. So even though the PSF appears to be low for the older freehold developments, the end up the quantum is very, very big. No, in Hillview, right, the product is very, very similar. We have 947, as you can see over here, Summerhill, 947, 3 bedrooms at $1.6 million. Very similar in size to a 3-bedroom over at Kingsford Hillview, big 1044 square feet, right? Then at that point in time, jumping back to the previous one, at that point in time with that price difference, a lot of the demand naturally would have shifted to the freehold development. Hence, you see the narrowing of the gap over here. Oops. Draw the narrowing of the gap over here, right? Even excluding COVID, COVID line over here, you already see the gap. You already see the gap narrowing already. Okay, so now that's one thing to take note of. Very interesting case study over here, and a lot of things that we can learn, right? This is something new that I'm sharing, right? If you got to see the product, you got to understand your competition in that area. If the competition of the older developments represent a very close or very good alternative to what you are buying into, if you are paying a slight premium for something that is new, you got to be careful. Okay, number one. Number two, is what we have mentioned earlier, the developer not being able to stage the prices up significantly to hand over to the resale market, which is why you see over here. Let's remove all of this so that you can see it clearer. You see the absence of any significant stage up in pricing from the developers. Yeah, basically one straight line lah. or as a matter of fact, downwards, right? I think they actually did drop their price to clear the stock after TOP. So now that is a very, very dangerous thing to happen. Do I expect something like that to happen today? The answer is no, because over at that point in time, we were still in that little bit of a low demand, lull period post 2013 cooling measures. Okay, where the speculative demand was all stripped away, the market was still coming to terms with all the cooling measures. So the developers really had a hard time over there, and also for Hillview as an area, it's not supported by very, very strong organic demand, not anchored down by a lot of good schools. The developers just couldn't get enough people to buy in to their units. They are stuck with a lot of stock. They couldn't stage the price up, and then now has led to a lot of headache for the existing owners. Another data that I also thought I could share with you guys is this. That probably is quite clear. Notice also the percentage ownership over at Kingsford, Hillview, Parc and Hillview is quite a bit higher than average. We see over here Kingsford, Hillview, Parc at 9.4%, the Hillview at 12.8%, right? Kind of direct correlation to the poor profits. You see the other ones. For perspective, we can jump over to Parc Riviera, Clement, Canopy. You see the percentage foreign ownership is very, very low for all of this, much lower than that of Kingsford, Hillview, Parc and Hillview. Okay, so especially in the OCR, if you have high foreign ownership, recipe for disaster. Another very good example is Silver Sea. Okay, in Marine Parade. Okay, so summary, all the different reasons. The two similar in terms of product, the demand all flow towards the freehold ones, right? The freehold basically offering the same thing as the much more expensive 99-year option. People all jump towards the freehold development. Also at that point in time, the prices is considered quite high. In the 2013 period, 1,200, 1,300 PSF, right? Because you probably will also ask me, Alvin, it sounds quite similar to Parc Riviera and the West Coast area, right? When Parc Riviera came out, it was also quite a fair bit PSF more than the freehold over there. The freehold over there are also decently sized, offering good sizes. So now, what is the difference in the why? What explains the difference in performance then really is the developer staging for the place law, right? The developer staging for the development once it goes into the resale market. Parc Riviera, Twinview, they had that going for them, right? Number one. And number two, because they had that going for them, the trajectory has been set after TOP for the price to continue moving upwards, and also together with the freehold ones, they all moved up together. Okay, so now, will prices remain suppressed for Kingsford, Hillview, Parc in the long term? Now, if we really to zoom in like that with the prices for the freehold in that area being so much more expensive, like that and like that, I'm going to put it out there to say I believe in the next couple of years, the prices over here will start to catch up, right? Because people will then start to recognize value to say, oh, the one really a bit old for a lower PSF, you know what? Then I will take the one. So now that the gap is established, I think the 99-year Kingsford, Hillview, Parc will take time to catch up again. But you see, all in all, take a lot of effort, right? Take a lot of effort, take a lot of time for it to catch up. A lot easier if the developer just handed off on the right trajectory upwards. Okay, next up. Parc Riviera versus Kingsford, Hillview Peak versus Clement Canopy. Okay, so this is just to show you lah, right? Just now the example that I was trying to say, Parc Riviera seems in the West Coast area seems very similar to that of the area in Hillview, but why Parc Riviera can continue to make money and Kingsford, Hillview Peak not, right? The developer staging. Notice this. Yeah, Clement Canopy, the developer staging, right? Parc Riviera, the developer staging over here, right? And then the absence of the developer staging for Kingsford, Hillview Peak has resulted in price remaining stagnant, entering into the resale market, right? Just as simple as that. Okay, so which comes back to, you know, I'm reaching the end of the sharing for today, but we have this, just bringing it out again, like I said, something that has fallen out of fashion in recent times is developer price staging. Quite important, actually very important in where the trajectory of your property prices will go, and with all the launches being happening recently and selling out so quickly, there is actually an absence, which is one of the complaints and which is maybe one of the reasons why Grande did not perform as well as Clement, Canopy and Parc Riviera. We did not have a lot in terms of the developer staging over at Grande. It was very, very important. Something that came back to me as I was doing the research for today's sharing. Unit mix and design, right? It comes from the case study of Trilinq, right? So if the design is too funky and whatnot, another reason why I'm sharing this is because we're seeing quite a lot of smaller developments, because the developers don't really build big, don't really want to en bloc the big developments. We have a lot of those small developments coming up. PSF may appear very low, but if the design, the unit mix and the design is weird, the developer cannot sell, then there's a lack of that handover over to you in good momentum moving forward. So these two things are fundamentally very important with where prices of your development head towards. Okay. Now conclusion. All right, I personally feel there's a undersupply of private properties in the West, which is why we see the old freehold developments all doing very, very well, right? Just not enough options available, right? Next up, be aware of entry prices. Why I say this is because of the case study of Kingsford, Hillview Peak. At that point in time when they were launched, the price gap between the existing freehold developments was just way too much, right? How much? We see over here 1,100 PSF versus 1,400 PSF, so there's good 300 PSF difference for more or less the same thing. Big development, right? Pools and whatnot. You get what I mean? Then, right, a high entry price is fine, right? Provided the fundamentals is strong. So let's say it was Kingsford, Hillview Peak, but teleported into Clementi. I think they would have done okay, right? If you were anchored down by a good school in an area with high upgrader demand, high HDB prices, right? But over in Hillview, not to say the prices in Hillview will not go up, right? I think the folks over at Midwood and over at Dairy Farm, with all the BTOs coming up in Tengah and all the BTOs coming up in Bukit Batok, and as Hillview develops itself an identity as a place for people to stay, because before Hillview MRT came up, really is quite a bit of a ghost town. So which is why there's not much organic demand there. Organic demand takes time to build. People move there, and then they tell their friends, hey, I stay there, that's not bad, it's quite chill. As a matter of fact, I quite like Hillview as an area. I think it's quite chill. But it takes time, right? And so in the absence, if you're entering at a high entry price, benchmark prices, just make sure that the fundamentals are strong, good organic demand, if not anchored down by good schools, mature estate. Okay? Starting price trends of a development at TOP is crucial. The whole analogy of the relay handover. Okay, something that we learn over here, something that is quite new that we learn in this channel over here today. And then lastly would be the entry quantums is key, which is why Parc Riviera continues, right? Parc Riviera Twin View continues to do well, despite all the things pointing towards that they should not do well. 99 with very, very cheap freehold, or not very, very cheap, like cheaper freehold alternatives in the area, not near amenities, not near MRT, beside the highway, yeah? So as long as you get your entry quantum correct, you'll be good, right? A case study that we have would be our good friends over at Treasure at Tampines. Last time everybody keeps saying 2,200 units sure die. If for those of you, I mean, it's been sold out, so it's not really catching a lot of attention recently. But if you really probably go and check out the PSFs, the sellers are targeting like 1,600 PSF now already. The entry price average, I think, over there is 1,200, so it's a 400 PSF gain. So congratulations to all of you at Treasure. Also, Treasure has a good relay handover momentum from the developers over into the resale market. So entry price, entry quantums, very, very important, okay? Now, areas of interest in the West, okay, of the OCR, what excites me, what's an area of interest? Again, we look at our table for HDB MOP, and if you see over here, we have Bukit Batok ranked number 2, right? Providing actually more HDB flats than Sembawang, than Tampines, then even Sengkang, okay? So 12,000 over at Bukit Batok. I believe it's the area near Brickland, and then down the Dulwich, I think Dulwich College, if I'm not wrong, right beside the new Tengah estate lah, right? The Tengah estate will not be up so soon, which is why the number over here is 0. This is a table for number of units hitting is MOP in the next 5 years. Okay, so with this, right, units along in the Bukit Batok area, Quest, for example, I believe will do very, very well. I think this will also have a sort of a spillover demand into the resale ECs over in that area. Okay, so Chinese Gardens will continue to do well, Lake Grande, all the developments over there. We have Soul Acres that I believe will do very, very well. So if you're looking for not freehold developments, resale developments, and you're located in the West, I believe Soul Acres will be an absolute no-brainer for you, right? Keep a lookout for its MOP and try to snap up a unit quite early on. Large development, low maintenance fees, a lot of resale transactions. New Town, Tengah coming up, which is my next slide, to offer you strong upgraded demand into that area moving forward, okay? Right, so this is it, Tengah, right, offering 42,000 new homes, of which 70% will be HDBs, so this is going to bring a lot of upgraded demand into the West side, for which I still do not see the government putting out a lot of private land. So I think generally in the West, as long as you're sitting on a private property, I expect the prices to remain strong moving forward, okay? Right now, so before we go, you know the drill. We have a list of underappreciated OCR properties for you, as well as the list you see earlier on, the list of MOP units where are all the demand located at. Drop me a text, happy to send it over to you. But for those watching the video, this list is just a consolidation of all the research that we have done. It does not mean, or you know, the better way to use it really is to understand how to analyze the properties, and secondly, how do you make sense of all those properties, which is why then you got to ask yourself high level questions like, do you understand the difference between investing in the CCR, RCR, OCR, right? Are you aware of the shifting trends and what does the market want, right? Which is because I use this circle, this why, how, what circle, what I send you, right, in that consolidated consolidated list is really just what are the profitable developments. But do you know how to pick up profitable developments? Do you know which are the developments that match up to you? How do you plan your property? Right? Because if you are able to plan your property portfolio well, plan your exit well, actually what you buy, of course, is important, but it's not as important because a lot of people, they spend a lot of time trying to pick the best property because they don't know how to plan their exit. And they feel that this is their one and only shot. But if you actually do know how to plan your exits, know how to plan your portfolio, know how to plan your moves, understand when's the right time to buy, when's the right time to sell, the choices actually appear a lot clearer later on. So instead of going from the outside in, I really suggest that you plan from inside out, right? The why are you doing this and whatnot, right? So if you already have a very strong why, space, kids, size, asset growth, retirement planning, whatnot, right? Next important part, the part that a lot of people miss out, the orange circle, is the how. Yeah? How to analyze the market, how to pick the right properties, right? It's not for me to tell you what's the right property because the right property for me is not the right property for you, right? Because my plan is different from your plan. Now, with that, yes, we are we are still almost 2 hours. Okay, so that we have come to the end of this sharing. Do we have questions, Andrew? If not, if you have any questions, same thing, feel free to text either me or Elizabeth. These are our numbers. If you want the kind of collaterals that we have, ultimate guide to upgrading, ultimate guide to buying your first property, contrarian property strategies, feel free to drop us a text and happy to send it over to you.
So we have one question from
Okay.
YouTube.
YouTube.
Colin.
Hold on, let's see whether I can jump into YouTube to see it. No, maybe you need to show.
So Colin says, thank you for your analysis. I'm currently staying at Lakeside. Do you think the latest en bloc nearby will move the prices at Lakeside? So Lakelife.
All right. So Lakelife is the EC, right? Yes. Actually, as a matter of fact, I don't think you really need to depend on the en bloc to move your. It will definitely help you, but you don't need the en bloc because the sheer undersupply in the west side will already benefit your prices lah. But I'm going to add a layer to that question. It's what is going to be your next move, okay? Because this particular en bloc, it may benefit you 100 PSF, 50, 100 PSF. But if you are looking to upgrade to a property that may potentially have a lot more interest moving forward and may potentially increase the price more, do take that into consideration. And also, one of the case studies that I highlight on my particular case study, do you want to then move yourself to a slightly larger asset and not focus too much about trying to squeeze the most out and try to time and make the most out of your current asset, right? Can you afford something bigger? Will it make your money work harder for you? That would be my answer to it, right? So if not, thank you so much for joining us and we will see you next month. Bye-bye.